Hello friends, my name is Pavos Termach and now we'll unveil the top news of these days. A theatrical staging of Putin's fifth inauguration took place in Russia. Why they do the fifth inauguration if it was possible to crown once, it is unclear. But it is difficult for civilized people to understand Russians after all. It is difficult to understand their imitation of democracy with destroyed opposition and civil society. It is difficult to understand their imitation of elections with falsifications and numerous violations, not even of the laws of the democratic world, but of their own. It is difficult to understand their imitation of the inauguration because they will once again call the president who should have been called the Tsar a long time ago. Putin has been in power for so long that people who could not vote for him in the first elections have already become grandparents now. The conscripts of the Russian army who are currently dying in Ukraine for unknown reasons do not even know what living without Putin is like. It is surprising that the Kremlin has not yet been renamed Putin's house.
Important thing is the inauguration of Putin. After a lot of discussion with member states, I sent a message to all of them saying that, from my understanding, the right thing to do is not to attend this inauguration. My advice was not to do it, and I think that most of the member states will not attend. I think it is the right thing to do. At the end, Putin is someone convicted by the International Criminal Court. At the beginning, it was a discussion about member states, we have to attend, not to attend, at which level, ambassadors, chargés d'affaires. But for me, the position was clear. It was going to be very difficult for the Ukrainians and for many people around the world to understand that we consider Putin someone convicted by the International Criminal Court, responsible for the war in Ukraine. The elections that we contest because they were not free, neither fair elections, and then to attend the inauguration, it would be a clear contradiction. So my advice to the member states was not to attend, and I hope that many of them, most of them, will follow this indication. But each member state is fully sovereign to decide to go or not to go.
After all, any trip to Russia is a matter of security for anyone. Last year, the Kremlin detained an American journalist, Herskovich. Two more journalists of international news agencies were detained last month. Last week, they submitted a search for the presidents of Ukraine. And all this is Putin's decision, because Russia has not been a free country for a long time, but a full-fledged dictatorship with pronounced complexes of hatred, envy, desire for someone else's blood. And Putin is not a president but a dictator and an international criminal. Russia itself is currently not ready to respond to modern challenges. However, it has an expressed intention to increase aggression, expansion and scale up wars in various formats. Ukrainian weightlifter Alexander Peleshenko died at the front. He was only 30 years old, the Weightlifting Federation of Ukraine reported. Alexander is the European weightlifting champion in 2016 and 2017. He took fourth place at the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, and now he died defending his own country from the Russian invasion. Just remember that every time you've heard that sports are out of politics. Yes, Russia and Belarus as states cannot participate in the Games, but their athletes were allowed to compete according to the decision of the International Olympic Committee. The president of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, told how the punishment of neutral athletes from the Russian Federation and Belarus who want to speak about politics at the 2024 Olympics in Paris will look like. Disciplinary proceedings will be initiated immediately, and the necessary measures and sanctions will be taken. The situation may lead to immediate exclusion from the Olympics. France 24 quoted Bach. But do you know how it will end? Calls to the peace, but for the 443 Ukrainian athletes and coaches who have already died as a result of Russian aggression, these appeals are useless. After all, most of the Russian athletes are representatives of the Russian armed forces, and they will say exactly what they will be told to in the Kremlin, and that will be beneficial to Russia. And if it is not profitable, then they will not participate in the competition. For example, fencers from Russia and Belarus will not compete at the 2024 Olympics. Representatives of both countries had the opportunity to perform at the last qualifying tournament, but they did not submit. Earlier, the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, opposed the participation of athletes from Russia and Belarus in the Olympics, and French President Emmanuel Macron said that he has no doubt that Russia will target the Olympic Games in Paris this summer. In particular, Macron spoke about possible information influence. Also earlier, the president of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, Theodoros Rospoulos, spoke against the participation of Russian and Belarusian athletes in the Olympics in Paris, even in a neutral status.
So I put the question, should athletes from a country which has invaded another one take part in the Olympics and proudly represent this country? Or put another way, can we condemn Russia for bombing Ukrainian civilians, kidnapping children, torturing prisoners, carrying out massacres, and then applaud its athletes, knowing that many of these athletes are actually engaged in the Russian army and the vast majority of them receive state salaries? Is this the spirit of Olympism? Theodoros Rospoulos, PACE president.
At the same time, the PAC chairman believes that any victory of athletes, even under a neutral flag, can be used as a propaganda tool for the Russian and Belarusian governments. Let me remind you that earlier the International Olympic Committee published the rules for the participation of athletes from Russia and Belarus in the Olympic Games in Paris in 2024. They will not be allowed to participate in the opening ceremony of the Olympics. The medalists will play a specially written anthem without words and will raise a green, neutral flag. The IOC has previously approved the participation of 12 neutral athletes with Russian passports and 7 citizens of Belarus. The full quotas include 54 and 28 from the countries respectively, but it is likely that they will be represented in smaller numbers. Russian military personnel have entered an airbase in Niger that is hosting U.S. troops, Reuters reports based on the senior U.S. defense official source. The military officers ruling the West African nation have told the U.S. to withdraw its nearly 1,000 military personnel from the country, which until a coup last year had been a key partner for Washington's fight against insurgents who have killed thousands of people and displaced millions more. A senior U.S. defense official said Russian forces were not mingling with U.S. troops, but were using a separate hangar at Air Base 101, which is next to International Airport in Niamey, Niger's capital. The move by Russia's military units puts U.S. and Russian troops in close proximity at the time when the nation's military and diplomatic rivalry is increasingly acrimonious. Over the conflict in Ukraine, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin played down any risk to American troops or the chance that Russian troops might get close to U.S. military hardware. The Russians are in a separate compound and don't have access to U.S. forces or access to our equipment, Austin told a press conference. He right now don't see any significant issue in terms of force protection. The US and its allies have been forced to move troops out of a number of African countries following coups that brought to power groups eager to distance themselves from Western governments. In addition to the impending departure from Niger, US troops have also left Chad in recent days, while French forces have been kicked out of Mali and Burkina Faso. At the same time, Russia is seeking to strengthen relations with African nations, pitching Moscow as a friendly country with no colonial baggage in the continent. Mali, for example, has in recent years become one of Russia's closest African allies, with the Wagner Group mercenary force deploying there. By the way, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the founder of Wagner Group, was also engaged in making money on this continent, and after his death, the business lives on and will live on until Russia and the Kremlin get a bite out of it. This is another proof that Putin doesn't care where to destabilize the world order, in Ukraine, Israel or Africa. The main thing is more wars for them because they have their own profit from them. That concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated, comment, like and subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support is what really matters for us. Goodbye.